For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lori Power. My company is MP Benefits, and I'm a group benefit consultant. Part of my give back to clients to which I serve in the community in which I work is to always be in touch with the professionals and the experts in their fields in the hope that we can all grow through a shared knowledge and a conversation. The most important thing to have here is a conversation. We're going to get started today by talking about technology, training with the right tools. Connie, can you start by giving us a bit of a background on yourself, who you are, how long you've been doing this, and tell us a little bit about Mission Computers.
Lori, thank you. And thank you for having me on the show. So my name is Connie Clark. I'm with Mission Computers. I founded this business actually 30 years ago, August 1991. It seems so long ago, but it seems like yesterday to me. And my mission has been computers. Even though people think I fix computers or sell computers, I do none of that. I'm not techie. I'm all about getting that thing to work so that we have a happy day with it, not a day that we want to punch it, right? So it's like, so that's kind of how I've built the business, is that we started off with the classrooms, which was actually in St. Albert. And then we went from there. After about 11 years, we changed to a model where we're more customized training for groups or individuals. And now we still do customized training for groups and individuals, mostly through Zoom like this, as well as having an online training school so that we can, so I thought to myself, I don't have the bricks and mortar. I can't sell the business in that way, but I can sell all the stuff I have up here, which is my knowledge. And over the years of sharing programs like Excel and all these other ones, I've learned so many things from my students about their questions and how they perceive things, that it's helped me become that much better. And that's why I love questions, and I always offer support.
And there is a lot of knowledge in there. We'll give a bit of a plug. Connie is writing a book as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that and when the expected release date will be?
Yeah, that was a dream of mine, and I really did nothing to pursue it. I actually ended up having someone pursue me through LinkedIn. It was a publisher that asked me if I would do a book on working smart with Microsoft OneNote. And so I am 6 chapters in now out of 15. I have deadlines every week and a half, getting a chapter, and I'm doing edits on the book and learning lots about how to write. So I apologize to you guys in advance. If any of you've read my blogs, I'm going back to them right now and fixing them because they're horrible in terms of writing. Like, I'm trying to do my best to give you guys instruction, but I'm looking at how I write things. So it's been a fun experience. Expected release, I believe, January 2022.
When it comes to writing and tech talk, isn't it that we talk in acronyms anyway? Like, it's all LOL, haha, no problem is an NP now. So, what do we care about grammar?
You think that until your publisher corrects you. And I'm learning a lot about the review feature in Word. I mean, I've taught review, that feature in Word, but now I'm really seeing it live. And man, your document gets to look a little scary after you've had 5 edits.
Tell me about a productive day. We hire people for skills and we hire people for mindset, and we're looking for particular people to fill particular roles. And the more that you and I look at this, and we look at that employee journey, and we look at wanting to keep our employees over the long term, how important is it to refresh and make sure that training is up to date in that productive day of wanting to go away feeling like I've succeeded?
There's no black and white answer to that one. It's kind of based on the situation for the person, the company, and all of that. But really, when you get new technology, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm learning something new, yeah, maybe I try it for a couple of days and see what I can figure out on my own. But I'm very soon after that looking for some expert to help me. And that doesn't mean Googling or YouTube for, 20 hours. That really means I'm a heavy believer in courses. So I will learn from somebody, take a course so that I can get there faster. They say you get there faster with an expert than you do, looking for it yourself. And so right now I'm kind of doing a study in terms of like how many of you guys here, I'll just throw this question at you. How many of you have Googled something throughout your week with regards to how to do something, whether it's in Microsoft Teams or Excel or any piece of technology on your computer? Who's Googled something this week?
Yeah, just about everybody.
And then, so of all those that have Googled something, how many of you found the answer immediately? And how many of you got distracted and ended up looking at something completely different?
That one.
I do this too. I mean, I totally know. So I'm always Googling stuff. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the hours we spend in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, when we try to figure stuff out for ourselves. And I'm comparing that to what happens if you just bite the bullet and take the training, or, at least consult with somebody that has the expertise. So it doesn't have to be paid training. If there's somebody in your office that is willing to spend some time with you, great. But that's the other question, maybe, is for productivity. We talk about that. It really does come down to, are we using the tool right? Do we know what we're doing? Are we hiding behind our desks, Googling stuff all day, or just making use of, or just, getting by? I think I'm doing this right. I was in a meeting, actually, when I was on church council. And I remember this one time, the church secretary saying, oh, we have our tax receipts going out next month. And she was just like, oh, I dread that. And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, it's going to take me 2 days. I'm like, it's going to take you 2 days to get tax receipts out? And so then I said to her, let me come in and see what you do. Let me see what your process is so that I can help you. So I did that. And we took the 2-day exercise that she dreaded every year down to 20 minutes. It now takes her 20 minutes to do. So, and this happens over and over again. I can share story after story after story with you. You don't know what you don't know. And so that's where having an expert help you, like maybe even look over your shoulders or just even ask them. I mean, I don't bite. I'm the nicest person you'll probably meet, next to Lori and Murray. I love giving away free advice. And then, of course, if it comes down to value, then we look at what goes beyond that. But yeah, I don't like people taking the long way around. It actually hurts me. So
I think you hit on something really important there, and that is the distractions. So, it's reading in the Harvard Business Review that when you have people who are relying on somebody else in your office for that continuation of questioning, when there hasn't been the training to bring them up to where you need them to be for that customer service or the task in which they've been hired to do, what you do is you stifle their creativity and you basically kill their engagement with your company, and you're close to 80% more likely to lose them to another company that will offer them training just to bring them up and bring because we may everybody in this room, hands up, we know how to use Excel, right? But do we really know how to use Excel to its best advantage for the job that we are doing? Exactly. So basic knowledge is not enough.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, I think of an example where, well, first of all, when people request something like Excel training, they usually say they want level 2 because everybody's used Excel for at least 10 years or plus. And so immediately that amount of years means they're up a level. So I let them go with that mode of thought. And then I give them an assessment. So I have a questionnaire that helps me assess their knowledge. And I have them come back to me. And 9 times out of 10, they say to me, actually, Connie, I think we need your level 1 course, or at least part of it. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you noticed that. So because how are you going to learn all that stuff? How, unless there's no magic rainbows that are, things can come down from the sky and teach us Excel stuff. You might learn from other people or Googling stuff and so on. But I remember this one time I was teaching this group of, I think they were sales or account managers from an oil field company. There's about 12 of them in the room, and some of them were really good Excel users. So we mixed up level 2 and level 3. I threw in some level 1 stuff without, and I told them that I'm just going to throw you. And actually what I did is I said, kind of did it as more of a questionnaire thing where I was saying, have you guys seen the shortcut to this? And then, find out if they did or not. Anyways, throughout the 2 days of training, we ended up, I like doing, using people's work in my training. So I like having them send me an example of a spreadsheet that they're struggling with, or takes them too long or whatever. And, and also give me your best spreadsheet, give me your worst, don't be embarrassed, show me as much as you can, because then I can help you truly become more proficient. Well, in the process of looking at one of their spreadsheets and me trying to figure out what they're doing, because I'm not in their world, right? We were talking about how to make this one number more automatically filled in and so on. And so we were halfway in the course and I was asking them, so what do you think we would do with this spreadsheet? And they're like, oh, we'll probably use what were they saying? A pivot table, or we'd probably use a lookup, or, they had all kinds of different answers. And they were good answers, but after 5 minutes of talking to them about the spreadsheet, I gave them the answer and had them do it because they learned that feature already, but they didn't kind of put two and two together right away. And so the creator of that spreadsheet said to me, I've been working on that spreadsheet for 3 years trying to figure out a faster way. And you just showed me how to instantly get an answer in that box without having to manually enter it. And I'm like, you don't know what, like he was trying to figure out how to do it more automatically, but then by me understanding what he was trying to do, I was able to give him an answer by asking him, then again, matching what I just taught him with an application, because that's the other part. And I think one of you guys already said it, is that, you can be taught something and go, oh yeah, that was kind of cool. I'm never going to use that. But then if I could see your application, then I can say, well, you use this over here. So matching it up, because you're not going to become rocket scientists in one day. You have to have some application to it.
And isn't that the process that you use when you start working with somebody, is to understand what those first steps are? What is the most common question that you get asked in any training session when you first start? What's that most common question?
People are always confused with save as. They always think they have to use save as. I'm like, if you've never even saved it, why would you use save as? If you've just started typing something and creating it, you use save. And now with the cloud stuff, you don't even use save anymore. It's saved automatically. But most common question I have in the early days, back in the 90s, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember that. Somebody actually kept asking me, different people asked me where the any key was, because I'd say press any key and they'd be like, well, where is it? I'm like, any key, so I got better at describing that. But common question, I don't know. It's just, I can't pin my. What about you guys? What's your common questions? Maybe we should ask the group here.
Well, for me, I don't know the difference between OneNote and Team. Like, I really have trouble with those Microsoft products and what they are and what they do, because I use, Excel and Word and Outlook.
Yes, that's the core. Those are the core.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll come back to that one for you, Murray. I have a YouTube video that actually explains the differences, but I may not have OneNote included in that, but it doesn't include, my YouTube video goes into OneDrive versus Teams versus SharePoint. What are those three, and what is the difference, and why would I use them?
Currently, like, we have Teams at work and we're rolling out 365 throughout the institution, but our team is getting a lot of information and I'd like to organize it in a central place. And Teams offers a wiki, and I was trying to play with that the other day, and I was like, well, this isn't working the way I expected to. I expected to work more like OneNote, to drop files of, PDFs of the instructions, and it didn't work at all like I expected. That's what I think we could benefit the most from.
Just to answer that question, I mean, I realize some of you may not know what Laura's referring to there, but the wiki is kind of, think of the Wikipedia, like we have a Wikipedia where you look something up. So Microsoft Teams decided to say, hey, why don't we put a wiki available to everybody, so that no matter what team they're on. So the idea with Teams, by the way, is keep in mind the plural on it. You should have more than one team, because there's more than one group of people that share information, resources, collaborate. So they all need a wiki. So what do you think of when you think of a wiki? I want to look something up. So what I suggest to my clients in terms of the usage of that, because it comes with, you get it. You could get rid of it actually, but it does come with Microsoft Teams. So to use that as like a standard of practice for the particular team and channel you're in. So it's very short and sweet. But you are right, Laura. OneNote is 1,000, probably 1,000,000 times better than Wiki. So if you have a big need for information and notes and collaboration, then you use OneNote. But Wiki's just there because it's just kind of like, it's like that bulletin board in front of the, office boardroom door. It's just, it sort of gives information on what to expect when you get inside. So kind of think of it that way. So what's the difference? So I want you to think about the words that Microsoft uses. So in most cases, the words can kind of give you a clue as to what the difference is. So let's start with OneDrive. So OneDrive is Microsoft's Dropbox, Microsoft's iCloud, Microsoft's Google Drive, if you want to compare it to other systems out there. And OneDrive you can get for free, or it comes with Windows 10, or it comes with Microsoft 365. So you have lots of opportunities to have it. And it is a place for one person to store their files. And so think of it, you can share those files with other people, just like you email another person a file. You can, with OneDrive, share a file to somebody else, and that's the equivalent of emailing an attachment, is what I would call that. But OneDrive is for one person. Don't abuse it. I hear so many people saying, oh, we share everything for our whole company on OneDrive. I'm like, So, I mean, it's not the end of the world. You can if you want to, but it's not the purpose of it. And the reason I say that is it just doesn't lend itself well to doing that. Let's just say it that way. It's possible. It's just clunky and yucky. I'm just going to use those technical terms. Whereas SharePoint, so think of the word there. What does SharePoint start with? Share. Sharing is caring. So what kind of files? So SharePoint is all about a filing system again. So you can pair OneDrive to SharePoint. Those two are apples to apples, really. And it's kind of like crab apple to the big apple tree. Crab apple is OneDrive, just a small piece, whereas SharePoint is the big one because it's for the organization. That is the system you should be using to share everything that you want for your organization. So Murray, you're like me. If you're an organization of one or two, you're like, well, do I use SharePoint? You still can, because that's giving you more storage, and plus SharePoint ties in best with Teams. Because again, think of the word. SharePoint is for sharing. Teams is, do you normally have a team of one person? You could, if you really want to make yourself feel more important, but it's usually Teams. It sort of assumes plural, right? So if I'm sharing files, then actually Teams is the mechanism I will use to share it. So Teams is like a house for your information and for applications. SharePoint is inside that house. SharePoint is the sharing system that's built in. You actually can just ignore or pretend you know nothing about SharePoint and just say, I want to use OneDrive and Teams, because Teams uses SharePoint as the back end. So you don't even have to go there if you don't want to.
Our chief information officer, I work very closely with him, and we usually collaborate over OneDrive, which is great. So I'll share the files and we'll just have the comments going back and forth. When we go to migrate, should I be saying we need to go to SharePoint with our server storage, which is team based?
Yes.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay. And how do we plan this? I think you've got some stuff on that. So
yeah. You call me, Laura. You're on my list. Okay. Call me, but I do have some stuff on that, and so so just call me, and I can make sure I have a few resources that I can send your way. I have some planning templates and stuff like that. But really, if you have a server in your company, usually a server is the term given to the machine in your office that's central and houses the shared information. That server would be replaced by SharePoint. Yeah, who's scared of that idea? Who's scared of taking the stuff that's on their local computer, the server, and moving it to the cloud? Who's scared of that? Okay, how much do you spend with your IT company to keep that server safe? And maybe it's other technology too. Would you say you spend more than, I don't know, 10 grand a year? 20 grand? Does anybody spend more than 20 grand a year to keep that server safe? No, okay. Well, Microsoft spends 80. Now you guys may have to quote me on this, or don't quote me on this, but I'm gonna do my best to remember the stats. Something that Microsoft spends, I think it's $80 million a year on security for their systems. So does that guarantee you'll never get hacked? No, we can't say that. But who's spending money here? I mean, like a Google Drive, Dropbox, they're all systems that have a large infrastructure and security system built in. But has Dropbox been hacked? Definitely. There's lots of articles I've found about that. Has SharePoint and OneDrive been hacked? Probably. I haven't really found any articles on that, but you know, it's really that we're in terms of that fear comes down to the weakest link, which is always a password. And the second weakest link, I would say, is you allowing people in your organization to use personal devices for work information. That is an absolute no-no. You can't control their personal device. So their laptop. So if you don't give your people laptops to use when they're away from the office, then that's on you. If something happens to that information, everybody should have a secured device that, you know, with your IT company, and I'm not an IT company, but you have an IT company that is making sure that that device is secure. But otherwise, yeah, your SharePoint is so much more secure than your server.
If somebody is properly trained on their systems, will it not reduce the amount of time they spend with the IT company trying to fix problems that they created due to the lack of knowledge? When I don't know what I'm doing and I'm fooling around and say I've gone to Google and I'm trying to get the information and I'm playing with my computer and I can gum up more than I expected.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, really, when you're going to do something like that huge, and I get Natasha's pointed out that she had a situation that was kind of scary for her. But yeah, you know, there are experiences that we'll all have had that kind of scare us and make us gun shy. But when you're going to do something really huge, you do want to go with an expert from an IT perspective and, you know, from a training perspective. Let's face it. I mean, your IT company is not going to train you. When I talk to these IT guys, they go, yes, I spent an hour with each employee or with these 3 employees, and that got them started on SharePoint, Teams, OneNote, and OneDrive. And I'm like, you spent an hour? Like that's not enough, you know? And so that yeah, certainly got them logged in, but that's as far as that would go, right? So training, if you think you're going to learn from somebody else in your office, then you are wasting your resources. So of course,
and I think that brings us back to where we started, right? If we've hired for a particular skill set and we've hired with certain personality types that are going to get things done, those same people will want to constantly upgrade and keep their talents sharp, right? What did you say in the chat here, Lisa? You want to Richard Branson, train people well enough so that they can leave and treat them well enough so they don't want to. That's an excellent quote.
It's great information, and I think, Connie, I'll have a separate call with you, hopefully, just you know, being a sole proprietor, business owner. There's a lot of things that I run into day to day that I find will, just like you say, it'll take me on this path. And if I just knew how to fix that, I would not be worried about that. I'm focused on what I can do well, because I know there's so many things that as business owners that we just kind of leave in the back burner and we don't deal with it until it becomes that, you know, a 2-day project or whatever it might be. So one of the notes I saw you had was QuickBooks too. Do you have a way to integrate that with business when you don't have it? Like, I have an accountant that does my year end, but on a day-to-day, how would you facilitate that?
So what was the question about QuickBooks?
I just saw there was a note on QuickBooks that was part of one of the topics as well. So does everybody just have QuickBooks and day-to-day expenses that you have as a business owner? Do you just log it yourself? Do you use an accountant to do that? Or yeah.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, QuickBooks, as the name suggests, is supposed to be quick for doing your books, and you would do it yourself. So and there are actually systems. I actually use an app with my QuickBooks called HubDoc that allows, and QuickBooks does this to a certain extent, but this app makes it even faster. It allows me to use my phone to take a picture of a receipt, which will then in turn create the entry for QuickBooks. There's a little bit of massaging I have to do in between, but that's the gist of what it can do. But quick, as long as QuickBooks is set up right, it's like anything. Microsoft Teams, Excel, all the stuff we're talking about, QuickBooks is no different in that you have to set it up right. You have to have that foundation. You have to have that planning put into it. And then once you're set up, you're good to go. You just enter. And then probably a couple times a year when you're getting ready for the accountant at the year end, you might do a little bit of fixing things up, but otherwise it's just pretty straightforward. QuickBooks tries to make things look like the real thing. Like when you're entering a check, it looks like a check in QuickBooks, things like that.
What's the menu of service training that you offer, Connie?
Was the entire Microsoft 365 suite. And so Excel, Word, Teams, SharePoint, OneNote, all those kinds of things. And then QuickBooks, because as a business owner and as someone that actually has an accounting background, I just started using QuickBooks myself, and I found there was a real need for some education around that doesn't scare people. That's one where people are scared of the system because they're scared of books. So I love helping people with QuickBooks and calming their nerves. And then I do CRM training with Maximizer as well. So and I teach what I love. I teach what I use every day. If I don't use it, I'm not teaching it. So,
and that's a good rule of thumb.
And I have to know it really well.
As we move into the hybrid workforce and more adaptability to that hybrid workforce, how important will it be to keep that training so that we can integrate both our in-person and our hybrid teams together?
And unfortunately, I don't have the stat in front of me, but it's something like, well, first of all, 61% of employees, and there's all kinds of numbers on this, but 61% of employees are preferring the work remotely as a default going forward. And there's a huge percentage of them that want a hybrid version of that. So training is going to be really important for productivity. You're not going to see them. You can't go over and help them at their desk, and they may not call you. People are embarrassed to ask questions. They would rather Google it and spend hours trying to figure it out on their own than admit they have, a question, because then that makes them look dumb, right? Makes them, oh, I thought you knew that by now, right? An interesting point on we're working remotely that I'm just going to throw it, hopefully it fits in here, is that you can probably imagine Microsoft made a whole ton of money throughout this whole COVID experience with their solutions. And so Microsoft Teams was rolled out in 2016, if you can believe it. It's been around a long time, so to speak. The Microsoft Teams was adopted by 95 million users in 2020, fastest growing app during COVID. Right now, Q2 of 2021, they had 145 million users. How many people do you think of that number have been trained? I would guess less than 10%. Less than 10%. You guys have been trained on Microsoft Teams?
And that brings us to what we need. We've gotten things rolled out over the last year and a half. That is there the training on it? So last word, Connie, what's the last word on training?
The last word on training is that you have control over what your knowledge is. So you are the best person to improve that. And, if you speak for an organization or a group of people, then have that mindset with them. People lose confidence, feel bad, feel ashamed, feel stressed when they don't want to admit they have a problem. And if you don't train them, you're allowing them to feel that way. And they're probably never going to tell you this until they leave, if they tell you.
And that leads us into a good segue for next week, where we're talking to Murray about policies and mandates and guidelines and making sure that you have things in order. So I really appreciate everybody coming out today, and I would love it if you tell a friend and come back next week. It's great conversation. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks everybody for coming. I hope to see you again soon.